Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shani Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Mathura Dhama Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai. Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Rakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samadhita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskachati Pacharane. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpachubhascha Kipasindhi Evata Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishwanebhyo Namo Namaha. So, So today is November 21st, 2022 at Gita Fest, and we're looking at lesson 3 of Career Dharma System, the propensities for a particular field and the dharmic expertise. And I don't see the translator. Where is our translator? Can you do it? Can you go that way?
I can go either way.
You can go either way.
I don't think there's anyone here that needs...
Is there anyone?
Yeah, I think everybody's fine.
Okay. If more people walk in the door, yes. Maybe you could ask them as they come in. Thank you. Okay, and the same deal, if I talk too fast, or if please don't be shy. If I say a word in English that you're like, what? Or I say something you think that's wrong, please say something. You're not foolish. We just have a different language. Okay? Is that a deal? Yeah. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means I used the wrong English word. Okay? Yes. A deal, everybody? Yes. I don't want someone walking out of here saying, Urmila said that. That's really wild. All right. Or just being confused, like, what? Okay. So, of course, this is a very famous verse. Maybe we can say it together. Chaturvarnyam maya shristam guna karma vivagasaha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. We can read the English together. According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. Now, I added this slide this morning for Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, who of course isn't here. This is the Gaudiya Math logo that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati created, and our Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, has this logo on the gates of our Mayapur Dham temple. And you can see in the inside part, the black part, where you have the holy name in the center, surrounded by the 6 types of prosperity. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Yes. Now, yesterday we talked about both the 6 ways of being prosperous, and we talked about the 4 fields. We talked about the 6 ways of being prosperous in terms of what kind of prosperity do I want to get from my work? What's coming to me from my work that's going to give me a sense of a rich life? Then we also talked about the 4 fields just in terms of defining what they are. Now, each of these fields also produces a particular type of prosperity for society in general. So this is not what you're getting as the worker. This is what you're giving to the rest of society. You understand the difference? Yeah. Like maybe I'm serving prasadam, and maybe I don't like a certain prep, okay? Like I don't particularly like utma, so if there's other things to eat, I won't eat it. If that's the only thing to eat, I'll eat it. If that's all there is, I won't eat it. But I may serve it to you. Yes? So if I'm serving prasadam, I'm not getting the wealth of utma, but I'm giving it to you. Yeah? So each of the 4 fields produces a certain type of wealth for society. The field of government produces yasha, or fame, righteous fame. Our country is wonderful, Mother Russia. Actually, yesterday, I heard so many people speaking in Russian, I actually forgot for a moment that I was in America. I'm like, wow, I'm back in Russia already. Oh no, I'm in Florida. And also, virya, strength, power, health. The government is supposed to provide for the health on all levels of society. Protection, but also virya is health and strength. Protection, health, strength. The field of artistry provides Sri, charismatic leadership, and beauty in all areas of life. This doesn't just mean people who do paintings. We also want beautiful plumbing, yes? Do you want beautiful plumbing? He's my most attentive student. And the field of ideas, it produces knowledge and renunciation for the people in general. And the field of resources produces Aishvarya, which is wealth, but also leadership. No? All right. Now, we're going to be discussing in this class something that is very, very poorly understood in my experience in our Hare Krishna movement. The Shastras describe the 4 fields in terms of dharmic expertise. If you even think of ordinary expertise, like one of my great-grandsons, who's 4 years old, he loves to do pictures. He loves to draw pictures and color pictures. You like that too? And he's quite good at it for a 4-year-old child. Now, his mother, my granddaughter, is an artist. She's a professional artist. And there's a big difference between my adult granddaughter's work as a professional artist and the work of her 4-year-old son, who is showing the propensities, the inclinations towards being an artist. Do you understand the difference? Yes. And if you took that 4-year-old and never gave him any training, the chances are he would never develop into an expert artist. Now, these 4 fields have their external expertise, but they also have their dharmic expertise. That's the whole reason that Krishna divides careers into 4, because each have their different dharma, and we will go into that much more deeply tomorrow at 10, Krishna will. Mm-hmm. But the Shastras describe for each of these fields people who have the dharmic expertise. They don't describe the people who have the signs of a propensity for that field. Not at all. I don't know of any descriptions in Shastra of people who have the inclination for the field but are not yet expert. Now, where do we have some indication of that? Srila Prabhupada tells us extensively that all 4 fields always exist in human society. Well, always is not absolutely true. At the beginning of Satya Yuga, they're not manifest. And in some very, very simple societies, they're not manifest. Like, say, the African pygmies. You won't find these 4 fields there. But when Srila Prabhupada talks about how these 4 fields always exist, he's talking about they exist in terms of the type of work that people are doing and the inclination for that work, but not necessarily the dharmic expertise. Because if the dharmic expertise already existed, what would be the need of teaching the career dharma system? You wouldn't have to. People would just be born with the dharmic expertise. Are you all following my logic? So the whole concept of teaching varnashram dharma, not just varnashram, but varnashram dharma, is that each of the different fields of career has a dharma that has to be taught. You will find that people from a very young age, absolutely by age 13 is what the empirical research shows. In my own anecdotal experience with hundreds of children, I'd say it's generally obvious from around 3, 4, 5 years of age. But certainly by 13, there's really, that's unquestionably, that the inclination is there. And the inclination towards a particular set of values and towards a particular set of work. But the dharmic expertise is not there. That one has to be trained for. Yes?
The values also are trained?
The values are also trained, but there's a predilection for at least some of the values. Which is why crossing fields is a mess up even for people who aren't practicing the Dharma. So that was an excellent question. Is this now clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this clear to everybody before I go on? Because this is, if it's not clear, just ask. That means I haven't taught it properly. There's nothing wrong with you. Everybody follow?
Yes.
So within human society, human beings, each human being has an inclination, a longing, a taste for one of these 4 fields. But they have to be trained in the Dharma. And each of the 4 fields has a different Dharma. So the predilection is like a young child has the ability to walk inherent in it. As soon as a child is born, they hold up the little baby. And when they hold the baby up, they see if the baby takes some steps. And whether or not the baby takes some steps is part of what they call the Apgar score, how healthy the baby is. Yes, doctor? So this propensity to walk, the inclination to walk, is there at birth. But still, one has to develop one's walking ability. And sometimes children who are raised in the wild by animals never walk. Did you know that? Feral children. Yes? Absolutely.
Thank you. I would be foresight. So when you were saying one has a propensity towards one of those 4 fields,
Yes.
is it, are we saying that a person shouldn't or can't have a
Question. And this was asked also yesterday, and it gets asked over and over and over again. When that happens, you've got one of 2 situations. Either you're in the field of artistry but wanting to assist one of the other fields, or you're kind of at the border of a field. So you may be working in government, but you're supervising those in the field of resources, or you're supervising those in the field of artistry, or you're even, you're in the field of government regulating schools. You're dealing with those in the field of ideas. Or you may be a teacher or advisor in the field of ideas, but you're specifically teaching some groups of people in the other fields. So you're always firmly in one field and only firmly in one field. You can have mixtures of the kinds of richness you like to enjoy, but you're firmly in one field. But the most common thing is ethics. So they'll be in their field of artistry, but they'll be helping people in the field of government. You follow? Yes.
It's a 2-part question. Part 1 is it's the challenge of the parent to identify what field their child is at that early age, right, in order to give them proper guidance.
Yes, parents and teachers, yes.
Secondly...
and parents are often terrible at this.
Right, because parents kind of impose upon the
Well,
child.
several, like what you're bringing up, the parents impose, my child, I've come to America from a 3rd world country and my child better become a doctor. I don't care if they want to be a musician, they better be a doctor. And I know people whose parents did this to them, And when they got to be like 45, they said, hey, I'm quitting IT to be a teacher. Heck with this. So another reason is that, and I'm not getting into this in depth in any of these classes at Gita Fest, but one of the ways that our propensity tends to manifest in childhood is as something annoying. Because your propensity, your inclination for a field, Krishna says, you cannot repress it. Krishna says that. You want to argue with someone, he's right there. You can argue with him if you want. But Krishna says you can't repress your basic nature in terms of one's inclination for the fields. But if a person hasn't been trained at all in how to manifest that nature, then the adults in their life may find it annoying. So I don't remember his name. I should look it up so I can remember his name. But he's got some well-watched YouTube videos. And he says how when he was growing up, that in school he would always be tapping on the desk. And the teachers would stop that. He was always getting into trouble, sent down to the principal's office, having his parents called in for a conference. Finally, when he was 10, one of the teachers said, "Can I see you after class?" Oh boy, I'm in trouble. And the teacher gave him drumsticks. It's a true story, famous guy. And he became a famous drummer. So I know one devotee child whose parents and siblings were always saying to him, "Will you please focus on what you're supposed to be doing and stop minding other people's business?" He would hear that 5-6 times a day, every day when he was growing up. And if his parents made rules and some of his siblings were breaking the rules, he would try to go and enforce the household rules. He was always trying to enforce the household rules, and he was always aware of what everybody else was doing. But when it came to what he was supposed to be doing, forget it. Like, why aren't you doing your schoolwork? And he was, I'm telling you, 5-6 times a day, he was getting yelled at by his parents or his brother and sister. Why are you minding everybody else's business? And then he went on the Polish tour, and he was the second in charge of managing the whole Polish tour, I think when he was like 16. And they said, we never had a better manager. Why? Because he was always minding everybody else's business. He always knew what everybody else was supposed to be doing. But as he was growing up, it just annoyed everybody. Should I tell you about myself? I was telling you. So when I was 3 years old, I went to preschool, and I got in trouble with my teachers. They complained to my parents. What do you think I was doing wrong? Teaching. Who was I teaching? The teachers. I was teaching the teachers. They'd say, your daughter, she's a big problem. She doesn't play with the other children. She's coming to the teachers and telling us, you should engage that child this way. And look at that child. You should make sure that they do things. And I got in trouble. And my whole upbringing, I was all stop teaching. So it wasn't until I was 24 years old when I met Jyotirmayi, and she trained me how to teach. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a natural. That's who I am. It's what I am. It's my food. And a lot of what I do is teaching teachers. Hare Krishna. So this is the challenges for parents. The challenges for parents are that as a parent, I may impose my own idea. You know, I had people asking me yesterday, I get asked this a lot, but suppose I can't make any money in my natural career. Like, I believe in God. I have this funny thing that I'm in the Hare Krishna movement and I believe in God. And it's okay if you don't share this belief that I have, but I'm convinced that God himself wants all of us to be happy. I don't know. I really believe that he wants us to be happy. I think that Krishna wants us to be happy as much as I want my heart cells to be happy. I really do want them to be happy. I don't want the muscle cells in my heart being, oh, we got to beat for this lady again. I'd rather be doing something else. I mean, my God. And we're going to get the prosperity we're going to get, folks, as far as like cash. That depends how charitable we were in our last lives. And Krishna wants to give us the type of prosperity that will nourish us. Of course he does. If you're planning a party for someone, don't you want to cook the food they like to eat? You know, Jesus said this. He said, you parents, you're not perfect, but you give your children what they need, what they want. Don't you do that? Why wouldn't God? So if we're situated properly, we will get our natural wealth in abundance. And if we're not getting a lot of cash, it's because we were stingy in our last lives, and that has nothing to do with the job we're in. You can work very, very hard your whole life and be cash poor, and you can be born into wealth. That kind of richness is karmic. But whether you're getting Shri or Aishwarya or Gyan, that depends on being in the right field. And you'll feel that you have a rich life. Some of you may know Krishna Nandini, my late god sister. So her husband told me, he said, we are so rich. He said, everywhere we go in the world, we have family who loves us and feeds us. Which one of the prosperities is that, folks? Yasha. So parents may think, unless my child goes into IT, they're not going to make enough money. They're going to be poor. Or, you know, I want my child to have a high status career. Or the parents just don't recognize the child's nature as something valuable because the child doesn't know how to exhibit it properly. Yeah? You all know Amala Harinam, the big kirtanier? Any idea what he was like as a kid in my school? It was wild. Like Mitulsi Artiki would be running around Tulsi, you know? And the devotees would say, can't you get him to calm down? I said, nope. I said, he'll see where to put that energy. Okay? So is that clear? Therefore, it's also helpful to have teachers in addition to parents, although I'm a real homeschool advocate. It's also very helpful to have teachers, other family members, other people that can look at your child and say, you know, what's their propensity? You all going to want to eat breakfast, yes? Yes, okay. So the propensity is like the inclination to walk, a disposition towards the values of that field, a disposition towards the wealth of that field. And this is the dharmic expertise. You all know this guy, right?
Yeah.
What a cool name he has for an Olympic runner. Bolt, right?
Bolt.
So as we go through these, I'd like you to be asking yourself these questions. What information do I know about different fields? What kind of skills do I have in different fields? Which values are important to me in my work? What potential inclinations do I have, and what expertise? And I put some of this here on the board, and I thank the organizers for giving me a whiteboard. Unfortunately, I didn't get very good pens to go along with the whiteboard, and so the only pen that doesn't run out midway is the red one. And I know that's not the easiest thing to see. So just, if we look at this, the question is, what are the most important questions that I ask about my work to have my work be meaningful? We have 4 sets of 2 questions each. And this is, again, what my work is giving to others. We're not focusing on what is it doing for me, but what am I giving to others? Is it true? Is it wise? Is my work true and wise? Is my work sustainable or regenerative? Is it supportive? Is it beautiful? Is it just, meaning fair? And is it honorable? And then what type of prosperity do I most want my work to provide, again, for others? Gyan and Vairagya, Aishvarya, Shri, or Yasha and Virya. And as we go through each of the four fields, we went through it yesterday, now we're going to go through it in terms of inclination and expertise, to be asking yourself, what potential inclinations do I have? Do I have some of the potential inclinations of this field? And I'm sure some of you already have some of the dharmic expertise in some of these fields. I hope so, seeing that many of you are above 22. Okay, so we're going to look at the field of artistry. And, I'm looking there and I'm looking there. Okay, so the little picture up in the corner, and I'm sorry, the projector knocks out the top edge, is of a child learning how to walk. So when you see that little picture, it means we're looking at inclination and not expertise. That's a little sign there. Okay, what do you like to play with? And I'm really going to use the word play, because the field we're in are things we're doing without being told, without being asked, without being paid. Now again, distinguish this from a hobby that you might do to relax. But what is the thing that you just do naturally? And many times we're not even aware of what we do naturally. Like one young devotee, was 14, 15, I said to her, your greatest talent is that you bring joy wherever you go. You light up the room. Any place you are, you immediately just make people happy. And she had no idea that she did that. She was completely clueless. So, but what is it we like to play with? What's our fun? Do we like to play with making art, performing services, exercising a craft? Do we love a particular medium, a particular tool? Maybe we like to work with particular tools, or maybe we like to use our body as a tool. So I'd like you to all think for a moment. Is this the kind of thing that I like to do? I really like to do, like 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Create beautiful things, or craft things, or build things, or fix things. The sense of, I made that, I fixed that, I cleaned that. And again, I'm not talking about, I like cleaning my house. And I like looking at the clean house. But you know what? If somebody came and cleaned it for me, that would be fine too. I'd be totally cool. I like working in a garden, but again, if somebody else did it, I'd be fine. So as the main thing one wants to do, I made that, I fixed that, I cleaned that. Maybe we've helped someone after we've shifted them into their hospital bed, or we've helped them to get what they need at a shop. We've made a painting that will hang in someone else's house. And this is something that really struck me about the field of artistry, and how the field of artistry, my dear friends, is the closest to bhakti. Because the mood in the field of artistry is I create things of beauty and function for someone else to enjoy. My pleasure is that they're enjoying it. I create a beautiful work of art that hangs in your house. I don't even see it. I just know you're enjoying it. I go and fix your heating system. A devotee whose testimony we have in our book, who's in the field of artistry. She's a plumber, and she fixes heating systems. She says, I said, how do you see this as your service to Krishna? She said, it gives me so much pleasure that people will be warm and have hot water in the winter. It's not her house that she's making be warm, somebody else's. So to have that, I've gotten someone else's house to be warm. To see other people wearing the clothes that you've designed or sewn. To look at the clean streets that other people's are enjoying. People who are like, wow, I picked up the trash, so people are seeing the clean streets. Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of people whose hearts will be joyful in this field. And often their name isn't even on it. You know, I've written the program so that everybody can find this. I've designed the software, and who knows who the software developers are, right? And you just see, wow, people can do this and they can do that with what I've created. Okay, going to the Dharmic expertise. The most important Dharmic expertise in the field of artistry is honesty. If you're going to hire a plumber, what's the main thing you want them to be? Is honest. Right? Everybody should be honest, but it's one of the main areas of Dharmic expertise in this field, in the arts, the crafts, the services. People who represent their service or their product accurately and are satisfied with receiving a fair price in exchange. That is not the quality of the field of resources. But in the field of artistry, a person is satisfied with receiving a fair price for work that they have honestly advertised properly. It's a type of honest simplicity. Another part of the Dharma of this field is great satisfaction in the craft. In Bhagavatam 11:9-13, this analogy is given as far as our absorption in bhakti, our absorption in the name. We should be as absorbed in the name as the arrow maker, who was so much looking at his arrow that when the king's retinue went by, he didn't even notice. I would imagine a king's retinue is noisy. I imagine that there's like a band. Woo, woo, the king's coming, the king's coming. Right? It's probably colorful, it's noisy, but he's like, my arrow's got to be just right. Full absorption in the craft. The love of one's craft, the satisfaction of giving a needed, essential service, the dignity of a job well done. It results in a kind of natural humility that is found in the Dharma of this field. People in this field are happy if they have loving relationships, secure homes, and using their ability to help others. They get joy from service. You can see how if you have an inclination for this field of work, how compatible this would be with bhakti, yes? So this is the dharmic expertise of this field. And those in this field, the main question they ask about their work is what I've done beautiful? Is what I've done supportive? Is it helping people? Is it making the world more beautiful? And again, if you want to give joy to someone in this field, tell them, you've really helped me. You've really made the world more beautiful. And they will just light up like a light bulb turned on inside them. Okay, field of resources. Here we're looking at the inclination, a love of playing with the care of resources like land, crops, animals, or money. They enjoy continually staying on top of upcoming ways to earn more money. This is nicely described in Bhagavatam 11:17-18. They're always thirsty, as we said the other day. They're noticing, how can I increase resources? How can I increase resources? How can I increase resources? This is the opposite of the field of artistry, which was, I'm satisfied to make something beautiful and sell it for a fair price. It's the opposite. The field of resources is, how can I get more? 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 How can I increase profit? How can I increase profit? How can I have more food for people in general? How can I make society wealthier? They tend to be very ambitious. They also want to increase their own wealth. They want to increase their own wealth and the wealth of society. They're very rarely satisfied with their success. They're always thinking, how to improve, how to expand, how to improve, how to expand, in quantity, quality, or both. How can I have a better quality of crop? How can I have a better quantity of crop? I have a friend like this. He's always like, how can I rescue more cows? It's like, where are you going to put them? How can I rescue more cows? How can I rescue more cows? Or I know another person in this field. The person they were working for sold the business. They had a share in the business. And they made enough money from that. They said, I could now retire if I retired in a place like Atlanta. And I said, well, why don't you? And he said, I don't want to retire at 30. I thought, I'd love to be able, to me that would be cool, You didn't have to worry about any money after you're 30. He said, no, I want to work. He said, I intentionally bought an expensive house in an expensive area and an expensive car so I would have to keep working. I'm obviously not in that field. I'm like, really? And then he started his own business again, and he said, you know what? He said, now in 2 or 3 days a week, I'm making more money than when I was working for someone else working 5 days a week. I said, great, why don't you use your extra time to write a book? He said, no, I'm using my extra time to make more money. So that's the proclivity, the inclination of this field. They tend to be very goal-oriented instead of process-oriented. And person with an inclination, they have an intuitive sense of the flow of resources. Right now we're going to the dharmic expertise. These people are systems thinkers. Actually, resources, government, ideas all tend to be systems thinkers. But the systems thinkers in the field of resources, again, this is dharmic expertise. They're aware of the systems of their specific area. So they may be aware of the systems of textile production, or the systems of giving loans at the bank, or the systems of taking care of cows. But they're not aware of the big overall system. They're aware of the systems in their area of resources. Right? If they're working with land and animals, they can feel and understand the whole systems of the season, the natural production schedules of the plants and animals, their competitors in the marketplace, and so forth. Like one devotee who was running a prasadam business was telling me, okay, I know, where the products are on the shelf, where are the competitors' products, what's the whole distribution network, how do we get our proper supplies, how do things go on the machinery, what is our distribution for the prasadam bars, you follow? Unlike the person who's just crafting the bars and doesn't have a sense of the system. Now, the flows that they understand and grasp are of natural resources and money. So why do they want to understand these flows? They want to understand these flows so they can direct them to themselves and increase them for society. Now, this is very important, especially when it comes to the Dharma of the next field that we're going to look at. Was someone over here that was saying how the government example was firefighter, was that? This is the opposite. In the field of resources, the Dharma of the field of resources is I put my own mask on first. That's the Dharma of the field of resources. I've got to make sure that I'm making a profit before I can distribute wealth to the society. Because if I'm not making a profit, my business is not sustainable. And keep this in mind tomorrow morning when we talk about what happens when people cross fields. If someone doesn't have this mentality, what they're doing will fail. Sustainability and being regenerative doesn't just apply to the environment, but someone in the field of resources knows in order to be sustainable and regenerative, I have to make enough profit first. They look closely at the specifics of each possible investment, cash flow, oncoming pitfalls, possibly unreliable dependencies. They see whether all of these aspects suggest a continued or expanding flow of resources, one that's sustainable and regenerative over the long haul. They will see if their work can withstand unexpected downturns, and they're renewing themselves through all pertinent cycles. Prabhupada talks about an expert in this field who had lost everything and then gained it back through a dead mouse. And have you heard that story? There was a plague of mice and rats, and the government was paying for anyone who gave in a dead mouse, and he got a dead mouse and built his business all up again from the money that he got. Took that money, reinvested it again. Somebody who's expert in the Dharma of this field does not take everything they get and just spend it. They reinvest it, and they make sure that things are sustainable and regenerative. They underconsume the harvest, and they save seed for the next planting cycle, so they make sure there's a closed circuit. Can you understand, hearing this, how this field has become corrupted? With the hybrid proprietary seeds that you can't save from the harvest?
Oh, that's Monsanto business.
Yeah. They've corrupted the field.
Yeah. They corrupted our health as well.
Yes. They're a very good example of people who have an inclination for the field, but not the Dharma of the field. Does everybody get that? The people running Monsanto, they have an inclination for the field. They want to work with natural resources. They want more, bigger, better. They want to feed people. They want to get their own profit. That's an inclination. But they don't have the Dharma, which is sustainability and regenerability. They've set up an unsustainable, unregenerative system. Yes?
Sorry, quick question, and maybe this was covered before, but it sounds to me like there's two components that you need for the successful development of personality, right? So you need the dharmic understanding, and you need the propensity
Yes.
to then develop.
Yes.
The dharmic component, is that related or dependent on societal norms or on
Yes.
training or
Yes.
all of it?
Yes. It's dependent on training.
Training.
Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to train the world in the Dharma, because that doesn't happen automatically. And even for devotees, if we're not trained in the Dharma, it's much more, we can do it. Bhakti's independent of all this. The material side of your life can be a royal mess, and you can fall in love with Krishna, but it's harder. And Krishna's kind, and Prabhupada's kind, and they would like it to be easier. Right? You know, you can write letters if you're holding your pencil like this, but it's hard. Yeah? Better have to hold it like this. And also society becomes chaotic. If people aren't trained if people are in the wrong field, or they're in the right field, but they're corrupting the field, so all society is a mess. Okay, the main questions of people in this field, one way I can tell who's in what field is by who falls asleep in what section of this presentation. The main questions that people ask about the benefit of their work in this field is it sustainable and is it regenerative? Am I providing sustainable, regenerative wealth for society and for myself? All right. Field of government. Okay, and again, now we're looking at the propensities. People concerned about fairness and rules. You have some children who are always asking, is it fair? Is it fair? It's not fair. It's not. I mean, everybody says that sometimes. But if that's somebody's main interest, is it fair? They're not following the rules. It's not ethical. People who like to play with something that's heroic, caring for and protecting other people, they may tend to argue or fight easily, especially if there's a higher principle at stake. I'm completely convinced that a good number of people who are arguing over ethics and morality and fairness on the internet are frustrated members of this field. They should be in this field, but they're not. They're in the wrong field. But this inclination it's there. And so they're always going online. This thing wasn't happening, and there wasn't this justice, and there wasn't this ethics, and there wasn't this morality, and there wasn't this fairness. They have courage. They have a tough skin. Now, we talked about there's leadership in all the fields, or the particular firefighter, or the person, running the school district for the government. But we do have the main leaders of society in general in this field. All right, let's look at the Dharma. Goal-oriented, decisive, determined, against systems thinkers. But instead of being aware of the flow of things in the natural world, they're aware of the flow in human society. So in the field of resources, they're aware of the flows of nature and wealth. In the field of government, they're aware of the flows among human beings. They intuitively understand and grasp emerging trends and needs throughout the area where they're governed. Now, remember we talked about yesterday that could be an apartment building. A landlord of an apartment building is in the field of government. Someone who's running security in a shop, they're going to be aware of the flows of people in that shop. It could be a whole town. It could be a state. It could be a country. It could be a shop. It could be an apartment building. But they have a grasp of the flow of human beings. The community they patrol as a police officer, the area of government they administer, or the entire picture if they're a legislator or if they're a government executive. And sensing the system, they know how to use and move things to increase the happiness and prosperity of society in all areas of richness. So although government is particularly providing yasya and virya, they're interested in the flow of all prosperity for all citizens. And the Bhagavad Gita lists the dharmic expertise in this field as heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership. The Bhagavatam says, dynamic power, bodily strength, determination, heroism, tolerance, generosity, great endeavor, steadiness, and high regard for those in the field of ideas and leadership. Now again, this type of leadership is the willingness to run into danger, running toward danger. Arjuna had a son named Abhimanyu. Abhi means going toward, Manu means danger, running toward danger. In the field of resources, you had better run away from danger. You've got to protect those resources. You've got to make sure there's going to be food for people even if there's a drought. You have to put your own oxygen mask first. You've got to make sure that you're making enough profits to keep your business sustainable if there's a downturn, if there's a problem. You're running away from danger. In the field of artistry, you're interested in your own personal security and your own craft. Not really thinking about supplying society with something. But in the field of government, the house is burning, everyone else is getting out, you're going in. The bullets are flying, everybody else is running away, you're running toward the bullet. Right? You're going into the dark, scary house with the criminal who has a gun.
What is that for women?
Huh?
Sounds like man's, quality. What is that for women? Women don't.
Oh, you're asking. Can you hold that? No, actually, I'll answer you right now. So Prabhupada talks about what is the mentality of this field. And he gives the example of a woman. He says, the king came back from the battle, defeated. And he comes to the gate and says, tell my queen that I have arrived. And she says, oh, has he won? No, he's defeated. Is he wounded? No, he's fine. It's an imposter, she says. Don't let him in. Thank you. A pretender. An actor.
Simulation. Simulation.
Thank you for keeping that bargain. So he turned around. He understood what she was trying to say, and he turned around. I don't have much time for this, but there's a gross... Well, I'll wait that till I finish this. No, get to it. Oh, not all of it, but some of it. Okay. The Dharma of people in this field, they inspire others and they command respect. This is true even if they're just a security guard in a grocery store. Right? Patri was talking about draws others to trust and follow those who work in this field. Again, these are those who have the Dharma of this field. They show their strength to protect innocent people and combat evil, but their overall nature is tolerant and generous. So if someone has the Dharma of this field, they're tolerant and generous. They're not bullies. They'll only use force and power when other means fail. Prabhupada talks about this about Arjuna, that he was naturally a very soft-hearted, kind person. Remember from yesterday, these are the arms. Remember you had that picture of the father holding his baby? Mm-hmm. Arms are not just, like in English, we have the same word for your physical arms and for weapons. It's exactly the same word, arms. Mm-hmm. Someone who's armed doesn't mean they have 1,000 physical arms. It means they have a weapon in English. But arms are also for carrying, yeah? Mm-hmm. Right? This is the main... People who are really into caring for people. And you can be into caring for people in the field of artistry if, like, you're an assistant in a hospital. But when we're talking about people who are really into caring for people, that's a good sign that they're in this field. We want to make sure all the people have what they need all the time. And that's like their main focus.
How is it different from resources who care about everything?
They care about giving people like food and stuff, but they're focused on the resources and not focused on the people. And we'll look at that more tomorrow at 10. People in government are people over projects. People in resources are projects over people. And they have to be. In resources, you better put your projects over people. And in government, you better put your people over projects. And so these fields criticize each other. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. They collect money in taxes or rent, and they redistribute it. In the field of government, they're not trying to make a profit. They're not trying to make a profit, which is a real problem if people with this inclination try to run a business. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to make a profit, and they're not generating wealth. Mm-hmm. They're collecting it and redistribute it, but they don't create it. They're not wealth creators. Now, these people may be very interested in studying history, law, politics, martial arts, morals, ethics, justice, but their study is practical-minded. Their study is very practical-minded. They will fight tirelessly for principles. They'll sacrifice their family for principles. Someone in the field of artistry will never do that. Someone in the field of artistry, they'll protect their family at all costs. Someone in the field of government, they'll protect their principles at all costs. People in the field of government are like parents. Just like in a normal family, the parents will sacrifice their lives for their children. A person in the field of government will sacrifice their lives, their family, for their greater family that they're protecting. And the fundamental questions that they ask about their work is it just, which means fair, and is it honorable? Am I producing honorable justice for society? Now, we all care about fairness, but that may not be the main thing that we want to do in our work. Okay, field of ideas. So the propensity for the field of ideas, people that like to play with language or mathematics, in pursuit of truth. These people tend to be insatiably curious. They want to know what's true and what's real. They're often good at breaking ideas and projects into smaller components. They see the pattern in ideas, relationships, and systems. They often want to teach others, or they want to research, or they want to study. Always trying to learn, always trying to research, but to find truth. Not to find how to make the most money, not to find how to take care of people, not to find how to make better pottery, but to find what is the essential truth behind everything. The associated qualities in the Gita are peacefulness, self-control, austerity. This is now the Dharma. Purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, religiousness, and the Bhagavatam adds satisfaction, simple straightforwardness, devotion to God, and mercy. So this is those who are expert in the Dharma. You can have insatiable, curious people who are looking for truth in order to serve someone in the other fields in a way that's perverted. Yeah? So they may be dedicated to assisting others mentally and emotionally by helping them understand how things work. They may be dedicated to understanding themselves or to seeking higher stages of clarity, insight, and awareness. They may be dedicated to helping people physically through medicine and through teaching physical skills. They like to collect knowledge, understand it, use it, and share it. Sometimes these people live in their heads, and they don't even care much about their own body or their surroundings. Sometimes they have little awareness of their own body and their surroundings. Scientists and religionists are in this group, and there's often a strong interest again in finding the essence of reality. They use language, math, and sometimes music, painting, dance, theater to communicate higher truths. Now, some people in this field focus on some minutiae. Some of them focus on like the literary ornaments in poetry or the eating habits of bears. And some people focus on the big picture. Now, unlike those in the field of resources or field of government who use their intuitive understanding of systems in order to control the systems, in the field of ideas, people seek to discern pattern of links that will guide other people. They're not trying to control the systems. The main motives of the people in this field are balance, harmony, peace, and equilibrium. They tend to feel that they're above the conflicts of life in general. It's kind of like they're sports commentators. They're not playing the game. They're watching it and watching the patterns and commenting on it. They're detached observers. They tend to grow to be self-controlled, austere, and tolerant people who are not so affected by the ups and downs of life. They have a quiet inner determination to remain balanced and detached. They don't have the external goal-driven activity that you find in the field of resources and the field of government. Like those in the field of artistry, they're satisfied with simple and basic things in life. But there's a difference. Those in the field of artistry are satisfied with simple and basic things if they have their basic material needs taken care of. So in the field of artistry, if I've got a nice place to live and I have my romantic partner and I have food to eat and I can do my craft, I'm happy. In the field of ideas, if I can live in the world of the mind, I'm happy. So both people in the field of artistry and the field of ideas tend to have externally, they tend to be simple rather than ambitious people. But the source of their simplicity is different. In the field of artistry, it's external. In the field of ideas, it's internal. The main questions people ask in this field about their work is it true and is it wise? So again, looking now at the relationship of the types of, you want me to go back there? There we go. And I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anybody who wants it, by the way. You don't have to just take pictures of it. So the relationship between the fields and the types of prosperity in terms of what's produced, this is again not for the worker, for society. Those in the field of government are producing yasha and virya primarily, in artistry primarily shri, in ideas primarily jnana and vairagya, and in resources primarily aishvarya. All right, so you had a question which I don't have much time to answer because it's 10 to 9 and I want to make sure all of you eat. You had a question about women. So that's actually discussed in another part of the career dharma system, where we look at how do we nourish our nature, how do we get from propensity to expertise, which we're not talking about today. How do we get from propensity to expertise? And another thing, ashram dharma, relationship to the natural cycle of life. And one thing to talk about there is gender. So this may be controversial, and I'm only going to spend 5 minutes on it, and if you don't agree with me, that's fine, I don't care. So, the fact that both men and women have varna, have work in a field, there's a lot of interest in the Bhagavatam about whether or not men are in the same field. And that interest is primarily in relation to you're all hungry. Nothing, no glucose in your brain. Okay, so marriage. Is there a huge interest in the Bhagavatam that when a man and woman get married that they should be in the same field of work? Like a huge interest. Is it a big deal? Is it over and over and over and over and over and over again? And if people get married and they're in different fields, does the wife change to be like the husband? No.
Yeah.
Urmila?
What about Devi?
Oh, thank you. Nice to have a scholar in the audience. Look at Urmila. First, he's in the field of ideas. He's married to someone in the field of ideas. He ditches her, gets somebody in the field of artistry. Does she become in the field of ideas? No. Devahuti. But we're not in a field according to birth. Kardama Muni asked the Lord, he said, I want a compatible wife. The word was sama. I want a wife who's sama. I want a wife who's equal. Now, of course, later on he said, I know you're used to opulence, so we'll give you a nice opulent place. Actually, was she interested? Did she care? No, she didn't care. The Lord says, I'm giving you a compatible girl. Our field is our field. It may or may not be our parents' field. When Prabhupada talks about compatibility of fields in marriage, one of the things he says, and we talked about this yesterday, is looking at people's horoscope. Please don't trust all the astrologers in 2022 to tell you what field you're in. Please, I'm begging at your feet. Please don't trust astrologers in 2022 to tell you what field you're in. But why would they look at the horoscope if it was just family? If your family was in the field of resources and you would the girl would automatically be in that field, what's the point of looking at the horoscope? And Prabhupada talks about ideal family, and he says, the wife is spinning, the husband is weaving, together they make a cloth, and this is ideal family. When the Shastra talks about the wife serving the husband, that included serving the husband in his career. One reason to have men and women of the same field of work is so you're psychologically compatible. Problem. Right? You don't want someone who's always satisfied with simple things living with someone who's always thirsty for more and more and more. It's a problem. But it's not just the propensity. Krishna says, he did say this. What was our verse at the beginning of this class? Chartur Varnam Maya Shrishtam, I created. What was the next? Guna Karma. And does Krishna have another verse saying, oh, for women it's Janma? Or does he have another verse saying, for women it's just Guna? So suppose you have a propensity for a field, which we all do, and you're not able to act in that field. You have a desire, you have an inclination, but you're not able to exhibit it. What will you feel? Everybody?
Misery.
Misery. What else? What kind of misery? Frustrated. I'm sorry, I'm not going to worship a God who wants half of human society to be frustrated. I'm not interested in such a God. Are you? You want to spend eternity with somebody who wants half of human beings to live a life of frustration? You have an ability, you have a propensity, you have an inclination, but you're not allowed to do it. Before the Industrial Revolution, everybody knew that both men and women worked in a field of work and contributed economically to their family and their society. Everybody knew that. But the women could do it from home. And mostly the men did it from home. Chanika Pandit says, happy is the man who doesn't have to go out of the house to work. And how did the women do it from home? How did they do it from home? How did they manage that? What did they have? They had extended family, didn't they? They had in-laws and aunties and uncles and cousins. And they had servants. One friend of mine who was Indian, brought up in America, married an Indian woman brought up in India. And when they married in India, she said, I want 15 children. After being in America a year, she said 2 or 3 max. He says, why? She said, in India, the servant comes, gets the dirty clothes, washes it, dries it, irons it, folds it, puts it away. She said, here, I have to collect the dirty clothes. I have to sort them out. I have to put them in the washer. I have to get them out of the washer. I have to put them in the dryer. I have to get them out of the dryer. I have to iron them. I have to fold them. I have to put them away. So there was extended family, and there were servants. What happened in industrialization, careers were sucked out of the home. It started with textiles. And all of a sudden, women, in order to contribute economically to their family and to society, had to go out of the home. Well, that's a problem if there's no birth control and abortion. Because women had an average of 6 children. And it's also a problem if industrialization splits up families. You lose extended families. And industrialization starts to mechanize the home, so you don't have servants anymore. If you don't have servants, you don't have extended families. But you still got 6 kids. So how are you going to work? You can't. Women were forced to choose their ashram duties and neglect their varna duties. They had no choice. Then came contraception and abortion. And then all these women, generations of women who've been frustrated, says, we're choosing varna over ashram. Forget marriage, forget children. I'm just going to have a career. And the whole society is falling apart. Prabhupada says marriage is now an imagination in society. I don't have to tell you all, yes? It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. We could talk for 2 or 3 weeks about what a mess it is. But all of us as human beings, we need to do bhakti. Unless we're an avadhuta, we have ashram duties and we have varna duties. All 3. If you're a normal, healthy human being, unless you're an avadhuta.
What about the field outside of the fort?
The commensals.
Yeah, commensals.
Is it like outcast?
No, but they're, I've run out of time. Sorry. So the solution is to bring work back into the home, to bring back extended family. And I always encourage young women, I say, find something you can do from your home. And one of the things we have to thank COVID for is how much work has been able to move back into the home. I mean, it wasn't 2020 wasn't a fun year, but things are moving back into the home. Do things you can do out of the home. Do things you can do where you can balance your bhakti, your ashram duties, and your varna duties. And if possible, marry someone in the same field. so that you help each other. So that service to the husband and work in your varna are the same thing. Service to the husband doesn't just mean like massaging his toes and bringing him something to drink and fanning him. That's not just what it, I mean, that's lovely if you do that, but that's not just what it means. It also means that you're serving him in your field because you have the same field. Now that's become perverted today in Indian society, that they're looking just at birth, right? But the concept is valid. So I give a whole class on this, like an hour and a half class on the whole history and, how, and this is why I understand that Srila Prabhupada, when he would talk about instituting Varnashram, would often talk about going to a way of life that wasn't as industrialized. I mean, for quite a while, it's like, why? Because in the industrialization of career has especially harmed women. And the next people it's harmed is children. Because children used to be trained at home in their parents' career from a very young age. And industrialization stopped that. And that's a whole other historical, which I don't have time because I promised you that you would go and eat on time. So thank you very, very much. And we do have Krishna willing. Thank you. We do have Krishna willing one more class where we're going to look at what happens when this is done badly.
You already know.
Oh, we're going to look at details. We're going to look at details for every combination of bad. We're going to look at if someone with the field of, who should be in the field of ideas works in government, someone in the field who